FOMO hit hard and I made the mistake of sleeping with someone. Now I'm divorced for good.
My marriage with my husband just ended because I slept with another man as a result of my shameful curiosities. I might probably get tagged with so many things for saying that my marriage ended because I got too curious and unsatisfied with my husband and decided to cheat on him just so I could satisfy my curiosity. I didn't think I'd ever be the one to cheat in my marriage, but the temptation was just too irresistible, and I ended up making a stupid mistake because I wanted to see what it was like to sleep with a guy the size of my affair partner. I couldn't help it, and I ended up ruining my marriage as a result of my actions. My name is Tamika, and I'm a 29-year-old housewife. I don't really think I'm just a housewife, even though I don't have a stable job. I do everything from small businesses to side jobs, but none of them lasts for a long period of time. I'm just someone that doesn't like sticking to a particular routine. But I make my own money, even though it's not as big as my husband's. I've been married for 2 years to my husband, Rain. Rain is a radiologist, and he's a very intelligent person. He's also quite hardworking, and it all pays off for him. But Rain is literally 10 years older than me. He's 39 years old. I know you might be wondering how that has anything to do with my cheating, but it does. Rain has a muscular body, and that's one of the things that got me attracted to him. I liked the way he was built, but I soon got disappointed when we started dating. I learned that the size of a man's tool cannot be determined by his muscles. Rain isn't as big as I thought down there, and our intimate life isn't that great either. He does his best, but he's always tired as a result of work and barely has time to give me what I want. That's how I ended up falling into this predicament. I knew Rain didn't satisfy me as much as I wanted from the beginning, but I still got married to him because he checked all the other boxes. I thought he would get better, but he never did. I managed it like that and never complained or tried to look elsewhere until recently. I got very curious when I saw the huge tool Axel had, and that's when the FOMO kicked in. Guys, Axel is my affair partner. I think I should speak in past tense now since we're not really together anymore. He's the one I cheated on my husband with. I think it's safe to say that he's the one that made me so curious that I couldn't hold it. I just had to know what it was like to sleep with a man like him. Before I get into the details of everything that happened, let me tell you all how I met Axel. So, like I said earlier, I'm not really someone who is into one particular business. I do a lot of things, and 90% of the time, I hardly like to stay in one business for a long time. One of my friends, Rachel, is also like me, so she became the perfect business partner. Just recently, we started an online clothing store for males. I know how weird that sounds, but trust me, this isn't the first weird business I've ventured in. I'm always trying trendy things and things that bring more money at a particular time. We already tried selling unisex clothes online and even female clothes, but we discovered that the female clothing market was already very competitive. Almost every clothing store has 90% of female clothes. We also noticed that girls pay less for a lot of things and like to bargain unlike men. So I decided to start selling clothes for men because they just order stuff without caring about how expensive it is. Rain is like that. He just orders stuff and I only get to know that they ripped him off after it arrives. So yeah, that's how I wanted my business to be like. We started the clothing line for men even though it was just an experiment, and surprisingly, it became something very lucrative. The money I got out of it exceeded my expectations, and I actually realized it could finally be the business I stick to. I needed money to buy a space to have an official store and equipment. Rain gave me the money without any complaints because I don't usually ask for money unless I want to invest it. With his help, I started up my store with Rachel, and it got crazy, guys. Business was booming and I was having a great time, literally. The sales were up and we had an influx of customers. Most of the guys preferred coming to try on the clothes themselves so they could get their sizes right. Rain told me it was because men usually had a problem finding the right clothes that fit their arms and stuff. I had extra space for a changing room, so I set that up too. At first, Rain was super supportive of the business and he usually patronized me. But I don't know what suddenly got into him or why he just felt like a woman shouldn't sell male clothes. I refused to listen to him eventually, though it started causing problems in our marriage. But now, I wish I listened to him because it was thanks to this clothing business that I actually got to meet Axel. He was one of my customers and he regularly bought shoes and ties from our website online. We mainly conducted our transactions through Instagram and he never had to visit my store personally. But one day he told me he wanted to come personally because he needed some clothes and wasn't ready to take the risks of buying stuff that didn't fit. It was easy for that to happen because we both stay in Canada. I was really surprised to see him when he came to the shop. It's not like he looked different from his Instagram or anything, it's just that he was more attractive. I asked him what he came to get, and he said he wanted to get some singlets, boxers, polo shirts, and tuxedos. I had expanded the shop thanks to Rachel's husband and his fashion ideas, so we had all the things he asked for. We even sold suits at the store. Long story short, he entered the dressing room to change into his boxers, and that's when my FOMO kicked in. Yes, guys, my FOMO kicked in when I saw his huge size. I'm not even exaggerating, he's actually very big. He tried on the boxer and singlet and came out to look at the mirror. That's when I spotted how huge his tool was. I was shocked to say the least because I never expected that kind of size from him. In fact, I didn't expect that kind of size from anyone. I've never seen anyone shaped like that before, and I can truly say he has good genetics. It was a big step up from what I usually saw with Rain, so I got very curious. He tried on a lot of boxers, and I just couldn't stop staring. I know I sound like the biggest loser in the world right now, but trust me, this is just me being honest. I might not be proud of how cheaply I behaved, but I had no choice realistically speaking. If I didn't give in to the temptation, then I'm sure I would have eventually given in. Even my friend Rachel kept on pulling me to the side to tell me just how big he was. We tried to behave ourselves until he bought what he needed and left. Rachel tried to bring up the topic after he left and tell me just how big he was, but I had to stop her because I didn't trust myself and what I would have ended up saying. I wanted to pretend like I wasn't interested even though I couldn't get my mind off him all day. I knew I was really in trouble when I got home and refused to sleep with my husband that night. It just felt like I was missing out on something when I kept comparing Axel's size with that of my husband. I'd never been with anyone his size, and I'd been having a lot of unsatisfied moments with Rain, so I just kept thinking about Axel. The FOMO really kicked in because it was the most annoying moment of my life. Many people in the comment section are surely going to come for me and try to make me look immoral, but I know I deserve it. I'm a married woman, or rather, I was a married woman, and I shouldn't have had those feelings about someone that was not my husband, but I honestly got too curious. I felt like I just had to try it because I'd been missing out on something important all my life. One day, I just couldn't take it, and I decided to message Axel. He replied to my message some hours later, and that's how we started chatting casually. I brought up random things like how there were new stocks of clothes and how we were having promo sales. I just did anything to initiate a conversation, and it worked. We started flirting, and soon enough, he was already asking for my address. I didn't give him my address and asked him for his instead. He told me his address, and I went there the very next day. I just couldn't wait, even though I tried to hold it. I wanted to know how it felt, so I had to go. When I got there, I discovered that Axel is actually really a flirt. I told him I was married just so he would know ahead of time so there wouldn't be any regrets later. But he told me he didn't care. Now that I think about it, I regret just giving in like that. But I feel like a hypocrite because that's not the same energy I had at that moment. At that moment, I thought everything he said was just too good, and I felt like he was the perfect man. I ended up sleeping with him not once, but 3 times that day. I actually slept at his house before going home the next day. I'm stupid. Trust me, I know that already. When I got home that day, Rain and I had a very long argument. It was almost like he knew that I might have cheated on him and wanted to confront me. But it was mainly because I'd never slept outside of the house since we got married, and it was very unusual. He said a lot of things and even implied that I had to close down the store because it was making me do things I'd never done before. When I spent the night at Axel's place, I knew Rain was eventually going to get angry, but I never expected him to be as angry as he was that day. He told me he'd been getting suspicious of my movements and wanted to know why I was being so secretive. Of course, I had to lie my way out of it because I was just too afraid of letting the truth out. I mean, how was I supposed to tell my husband I cheated on him? I knew Rain would never just let it go, and I knew that we would end up losing our marriage as a result of my desires. I also felt like losing him would be a big loss for me, because he was basically the only stable thing I had in my life. I didn't want to lose him. That's why I carried on with the poor, intimate life for the 2 years our marriage lasted. I was just too scared to say otherwise or try to be with someone else. A part of me kept feeling like I had no choice than to stick to the man I married, even though things didn't end up going on as planned. That's why I decided to hide the fact that I cheated on him. Call me a coward for hiding it, but I just felt like it was the best thing I could do. The reason it was so easy for me to hide it is because I thought I'd never end up seeing Axel again. I thought our relationship was over and there'll be no reason for us to meet up. I went about my daily life like nothing happened and just carried on. I didn't even tell Rachel about it because I didn't trust her that much. Even though we were business partners, I couldn't imagine telling her I cheated on my husband. I couldn't even imagine telling anyone what I did because I was just too scared of the outcome. But hiding the truth was not the best decision because things came back to stab me in the back. I've learned that deceit is never the solution and there's nothing one can do to stop the truth from coming out. Lowell, you might try to hide it and succeed, but it's only going to take time before it gets out. The truth started finding its way out from my intimate life with my husband. I mean, of course, things are not expected to go back to normal after I cheated on him. There are going to be signs, and he's going to know that I cheated. It started from my nonchalant attitude towards our nights together. I just didn't feel like sleeping with him anymore. Before I met Rain, I only dated 2 men all my life. The first one was in high school and we never got intimate. The second one was a 4-year relationship in college. That's just to say that I never experienced my B before getting married to Rain. So, after being with Axel and just experiencing what it was like to be with a man like him, I hated my relationship with Rain more. I just hated getting intimate with him because I felt like it was trash and it wasn't as good as I wanted. Rain tried to be patient with me at first, but he later got very angry and impatient. He kept asking me why I was being reluctant to get intimate with him, and I just kept coming up with excuses like being sick if getting tired. In the nights when I eventually decided to get intimate with him, he could tell that I was holding something back. My reluctant attitude went on for months before the truth finally came out. It was actually long overdue if you ask me. Rain is very attentive and he started keeping an eye on me from that moment on. I knew he was trying to follow me around, but I played along and acted like I was oblivious to the things he was doing. The main reason why I acted that way is because I just didn't want him to get more suspicious. One day, something crazy happened and I got a call from Axel. I was really shocked to get a call from him considering the fact that we agreed that it would just be a one-time thing. Guys, please don't come at me. I already know how foolish and stupid I am. You really don't need to rub it into my face. I made mistakes I'm not proud of and I shouldn't have done what I did. But at that moment, all sense of reasoning was gone and I thought I was doing nothing wrong. I thought satisfying myself was natural and there was no need to feel bad about it. I should have thought about Rain and how unfair I was to him. He had been the one to cheat. I know it would have hurt me a lot. So after Axel called me, he asked us to meet up on a date. It was a weird message because I knew he was never one to take things slow for any reason. But I decided to just listen to him and go on a date with him. He told me he liked me while we were on the date. Yes, he told me he liked me. I was shocked and I found his sudden confession very weird because, like I said, he already knew I was married. I couldn't understand why he would tell a married woman he liked her. What did he expect at the end of the day? That I would get into a full-time relationship with him? I was already having serious problems in my marriage with my husband, so I didn't want a situation where things got complicated. That's why I told him to hold on for a bit so I could think about what he said. He kept calling me after that day and trying to check up on me. For me, I knew there was no possibility of me actually liking him or falling in love with him. I just liked what he offered and the fact that he was quite good in bed. That's why I decided to give in at the end of the day. I tried to resist, but the FOMO kicked in again, and I just wanted to see what it was like one more time. It's messed up, I know, but my common sense is only coming back now. Back then, I actually thought I was doing the best thing I could do for myself. I ended up meeting up with Axel one last time, and I spent the night with him again. After that day, I made it clear to him that I could not meet him again, because my husband was getting suspicious, and I couldn't afford to keep making him find red flags. Axel agreed and said he understood where I was coming from, and that it was for the best. He promised never to contact me again, and also told me he was even planning to leave Canada because he got transferred at work. I deleted his number, then left his house that day. I went home straight because I thought Rain would be at work and would not be at home. But that was just me deceiving myself and being in the dark, because when I got home, Rain was already there waiting for me. Since I got married to him, he's never missed work without a valuable reason, and he always tries his best to keep a steady workflow. so I was really surprised to see him at home that day. I know you guys are wondering why it bothered me that he was at home. Well, the fact that I spent the night outside and didn't come home scared me. We already had issues because of that before, so I just knew that there was going to be drama. I was also 100% sure that the only reason Rain didn't go to work was because he wanted to wait for me and confront me about staying late again. My assumptions were not wrong because that is exactly what happened. He didn't even let me settle down when I came back. He started saying all sorts of hurtful words, and he went as far as telling me that he knew I was cheating on him. I was very surprised that he said that to me because I didn't expect that he would even suspect I was cheating on him. I knew that he was having suspicions about the way I was acting at night, but I didn't think he would connect it to my infidelity. It was a very heated argument, and even though I tried my best not to say anything that would implicate that I cheated, all my efforts were in vain. It was initially all about the fact that he kept poking me to say something. He asked me why I stayed up late again and why I did not come home. He also asked me where I slept when I didn't come home for the second time. All those questions really caught me off guard because they were not questions that I was expecting. I didn't think that he would be at home, so I did not prepare ahead of time to tell him the things I needed to tell him. While we were arguing, he told me I needed to stop acting like I was the hottest woman on earth by denying him intimacy at night. He tried to diminish my confidence, so I got angry and told him I was cheating on him with someone that was far better than him. I told him he was the one who wasn't the hottest person. He never satisfied me, so I had to look for someone who did. It was after I said those words that I realized that he had just been trying to get the truth out of me and was not sure that I cheated on me. He just wanted me to say the words myself so that he would know the truth, and I fell for it. That's how my marriage ended, guys. Rain was so angry that he almost laid his hands on me. I really respect the level of self-control he had and how he held back himself. I shouldn't have robbed it in his face, but my anger made me do it. He sent me out of the house that very day, and 2 weeks later I was served with divorce papers. He didn't try to consult me personally, and I haven't heard from him since then. I signed the divorce papers, and now I am waiting for our court hearing so our divorce can be finalized. My stupidity and unnecessary curiosity has now ended my 2 years of marriage. Update. Hi guys, I'm here to update you all on everything that happened since the last update. So the divorce eventually got finalized about 2 months later. Before we finally got divorced, Rain made sure he collected the money he gave me to invest in the store. Thankfully, I was able to give him the money as a result of the profits I made from the store. He only contacted me through his lawyer and never had any physical conversation with me. The last time I spoke to Rain was when I told him I cheated on him. The guilt has been eating me up and I regret everything. But I guess there's nothing I can do at the end of the day. I let my needs and desires lead me to do something I eventually regretted with passion. One thing about life is that you only truly appreciate what you have after it's gone. Few months ago, I didn't think that I would really miss my ex-husband like I do now. Back then, I just felt like I needed to cheat on him, and that would be the best thing to do. I didn't realize that I would end up regretting it with so much passion at the end of the day. But now I actually do realize that I should have never married Rain if I felt like he didn't satisfy me like I wanted. It was unfair to him, and it was also unfair to me.
Hey there guys. I've been keeping this down for a long time now. It has been almost 10 years since this happened, and I think it's now time I start to tell my story. This might get pretty long because all the events that I'm about to narrate have long occurred, so that means that unlike most of the stories I normally read on this Reddit, there won't be updates. My ex-wife betrayed me and I lost my marbles. Some time ago, I was married to a lady named Caroline. She was a career-driven lady and one of those strong independent women who only cared about her career. She wasn't always like that. I don't know, something about the job she got after we got married made her like that. We got married young. She was 24 and I was 27. We decided to hold off on having kids because we wanted to spend a few years enjoying each other's company. I had suggested it and she agreed because she thought we weren't yet mature enough to handle raising kids. We decided to wait until we were married 5 years. She got that job 2 years into our marriage. I remember her first day at work. She came back so happy and full of immense admiration for her coworkers. She couldn't stop telling me everything she had learned from the first day at the office. What did she tell? Well, let's start from the fact that it was a female-dominated workspace, which I didn't really care much about until she said they wanted to make it a female-only thing, but they needed the men to run the things they couldn't. Things that were heavy-duty. I thought that was weird, seeing her joke about how her coworkers spent most of their lunch break shitting men. I get women empowerment and all, but that seemed to me like taking it too far. Due to that, I started to get a feeling that I wouldn't like her stay at the company. I also knew that it would be almost impossible to persuade her to quit working there if my fears ever became reality. Though I had my takebacks, I was really happy for her. She finally got to work a job she wanted and had dreamt of. I hated the way she was miserable during the year she worked as a teacher, and I was happy she had gotten something that made her happy to wake up each passing day. The weeks passed, with her getting more enthusiastic about her work life with each passing day. I won't lie, I started to get a little jealous. Not a lot of people were still giggy about working for more than 2 months. There's always the initial, "I love working here" stage, but I didn't always last that long, mine sure didn't. Her joy about work was nice, meant we got to get freaky in the other room often, which was wild. She never had any complaints about her work, except for a few customers being customers, which was something I was happy was going right for her. Now the other thing I didn't like about where she worked started to rear its head. Most of the workers were career-driven feminists who were all single past the age of 35. I felt that at the age of 23, she was way too young and could potentially be malleable or brainwashed into thinking that she made a mistake marrying early. Also, I hoped that she didn't start to model their single lifestyle, because she looked up to a lot of them. Now the funny thing is, the conversations she had with them, at least the ones I knew of, mostly centered around their careers. They also had conversations about other things though, but they mostly spoke about how they wanted to grow their business to the highest of heights. She told me a lot of things about them, how her boss, a 49-year-old woman as of then, always told her next step was this, or that other one, which were all always something about making more money and becoming the most popular or influential person that bore her name. I don't remember the name, but my ex-wife always said the name with so much respect then. Well, slowly they started to tell her things and she started to listen. She started to want to be like these women, she wanted to become an influential person herself. I tried to talk to her, to tell her that I loved her ambition, but those women weren't women she should aspire to be like. I tried to talk to her, show her more influential women, who were able to make names for themselves while still being in a committed relationship. Funny enough, they always talked her up for being the youngest, but still the only one who was married. There were days when she would come back more excited than normal, because a coworker, one of whom she looked up to, had told her she'd happily swap lives with her. So it seemed they all wanted to get married someday, but one thing that most of the women didn't want was, you guessed, kids. She had started dropping subtle hints that she didn't want kids now. I knew it was because of her work environment. The only people who had kids were the people who did the maintenance, IT and other stuff. The women who worked with the main team, which she was a part of, didn't. At this point, we were drawing closer to the time we gave before we started to try for kids. I paid no mind to whatever hints and signs she dropped and decided that she'd either tell me herself or we move on as planned. After our 5th anniversary, we talked about her going off birth control. She disagreed. I laughed, to be honest, but I didn't find anything funny about her disagreement. She told me a lot of things that her group of undesirables had said to her about having kids, how the only thing the man had to worry about was the initial, which the men liked. Every other thing was on the women. She talked on and on about how she felt bringing a child into the world was only going to slow her pace. At this point, she had already started climbing up the corporate ladder. It was disheartening to see the woman I loved, who was always a mom, who always loved nurturing, who wanted to have kids before we even got married, turn into something like this, something I couldn't explain in just 3 years of working at that place. The bunch of undesirables, as I started calling her coworkers, had indoctrinated her with their undesirable ideas. They had turned my woman into your average deluded feminist. What was worse? She cited the fact that she was the one who earned the bulk of the money we spent and the money we had in our joint account. Low blow that was, if you ask me. We talked about this for several months. She had started telling me the things her mates at the office were telling her, that I was unknowingly becoming a part of the problem, that I couldn't see past my patriarchal instincts which were meant to oppress women. There's no way she thought me wanting kids was oppression, was what I thought. Unknown to me, this woman was already far gone. This conversation went on for a longer period of time than I expected. It took her a few months, but on my birthday, November the 27th, 12 years ago, she brought her birthday gift to me. She had gone off birth control. I was happy, really happy. It was now time for me to make little McLean babies. Unknown to me, that was where the evil deeds started. We tried for 2 years for a baby. At this point, if I was given just one child, I'd have bitten the hand off of whoever offered it. We went to different family clinics, met with different fertility experts, and did tests on each other. Deep down, I thought I was being punished for being an absolute player in 7 years from 17 till 24 when I first met Caroline. I had gone to see a urologist, just to be sure I was even able to get a woman pregnant. She went to see the people she would see to get a fertility test done, or at least that was what she told me. When we got results, we were both really fertile, and the specialists only said we should try more so that it would surely happen. Hey, more sex. I'll take what I can get. Over the next 2 years, we still got no results. Then unfortunately, and also fortunately for me, she got involved in an accident, a fatal accident that claimed the lives of several of her co-workers as they went on a convention in another state. I was chilling at home that day. 'Twas a Saturday evening, so I was back home from working. She wasn't home, so everywhere was extremely quiet. I was sitting in the living room doing nothing at all, just sitting. You men know how soul-pleasing a quiet house is. I got a call from a hospital in the state where she was. She was involved in an accident and was one of the few who they got to on time and were saved. I was told she was put on life support but needed to be operated on before the next 3 days, or she might not make it. I rushed down to the hospital with every possible thing that I thought would be needed. It took me till 10 a.m. the next day to get there, but I didn't stop driving until I got to the hospital, driving for more than 12 hours straight. Immediately I got there, I rushed to the where I met my ex-wife. Seeing her in that state, it was pretty hard to contain myself. The thoughts of losing her taunted me. I was scared. I handed whatever documents the hospital needed and they started the surgery. 2 days later she was stable, she could talk and all. I stayed by her side at the hospital all through the days. We were talking and laughing when the doctor came in to check on her, as he did at least once a day. As he made to leave, I asked when she'd be discharged. He responded saying, "Very soon, I just need to prescribe some medication and checkups at the hospital where you live, but before that I'd need to know if there's anything that could affect the medication I'd be prescribing. We don't want to accidentally cripple or even worse, do in a patient we just spent 12 hours in the operating room with." "Anything like what?" Caroline asked. "You know, things like ulcer, pregnancy, diabetes, and aborted pregnancies. Anything that may have not been in the medical history." "No," I responded. "There are no health obstructions." The doctor said okay and headed out of the room. He didn't make it out the door when my ex-wife called him back. "Wait," she said. "There is something." The doctor turned and walked back towards us, asking to hear what it was. She looked at me. I could see in her face that she was afraid to say whatever it was she wanted to say. She hesitated a little, then I nudged her to say what it was. "I had an abortion last week." "Hold on a minute, what?" I didn't even know when I had shouted this out. "Please don't stream the patient, you don't want to risk us having a setback." I controlled myself. The doctor took notes and left. It was now my turn to ask the questions. "What do you mean you had an abortion?" "You had an abortion when we were desperately trying to have kids for 2 years? What made you make such a decision without talking to me first?" She started crying, saying she never wanted me to find out this way. That wasn't what I asked her. I told her to answer only the questions I asked, nothing more. She started to talk about the years she spent at the company. She talked about the fact that the women she walked with were all against having children, how they didn't want anyone to be dependent on them. She told me how they called children leeches, parasites. She told me how she had told them about our fights, and how one of them suggested she agree with me but get abortions behind my back. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. She said the lady told her that she might only have to do it once and that I might give up after trying for 6 months to a year. I was really disappointed at her. Are these really the people she looked up to? How many? I asked her. She shook her head, saying she didn't want to answer, that I'd leave her if she said how many. I looked at this lady, at this murderer. I asked again, how many? She shook her head, saying, no, 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 no. How many? 7. She said, finally caving. Wow, 7. 7 abortions. All the while she watched me blame myself for us not being able to have kids, and all the while we could have had maybe 2 kids running around the crib. Wow. I walked out of the hospital. As I headed home, I thought about the whole thing. It took me 17 hours to get back home, as I used that time to think about the whole thing. I imagined having 7 children running around my house. I closed all my windows and screamed for a long time, hoping I'd scream away the pain. After successfully giving myself a headache, I calmed down. I decided I needed to get back at her. The only reasonable thing that came to mind was to ruin the career she willingly killed my kids to have. I remembered her telling me once about how the company was evading tax the whole time they existed. She had briefed me on how they did it, and because she was now CFM, Chief Financial Manager, she was actively involved in it all. I knew what I had to do. When I got home, I went straight for her keys and headed to her office. Since the majority of the undesirables were a part of the accident and those who weren't were at the convention, I took my chance. I went for all the files I could find that could serve as tangible proof of their tax evasion, like records of monthly profits, budgets, anything I came across that seemed like evidence, I took. I scanned copies and saved them on my device. Then I called my lawyer, told him how things were. I evenly shared the money in the joint account, and I left the house to her. I didn't even know what to do there anymore. Everything in there reminded me of her. By the end of the week, it was all ready. The IRS had been alerted and proof presented to them. The divorce papers were ready. I went out to meet my realtor to find a better place to move into. The time I had spent there was already too much. By the time I had gotten home, Caroline was back from the hospital. She got up and rushed to me when she saw me. I put my hand out at a stop sign. I don't want to hear whatever it is you have to say. The papers on the table are divorce papers. You've been served. Henceforth, we will only be conversing via our lawyers, I said to her. She tried to beg me, tried to explain herself, but I wasn't having it. I went straight to the room, reached for my bag of clean clothes, and headed right out. I only stopped at the door to say these last words to her. Listen, love, you should be ashamed of yourself. You broke my trust and went against nature, all because of your stupid career. Well, I hate to break it to you, but I've alerted the IRS, so I hope your company has made a ton of profit, because you better call Saul. I hope you regret the decision you made, and I hope that whenever you look in the mirror you see yourself for who you really are. A murderer. I left again. This time for good. I slept at my office for a week before I was able to find a new place that was within my price range and mortgage plan. In 2 months our divorce was final. Just a day after we were officially divorced, I heard on the local news radio about an all-female company being busted for tax evasion. Yes. Giving karma time to do its job. Do it yourself. I didn't really follow the court proceedings. Hell, I was there only twice, the day I was called on as a witness and the day of the sentencing. The case took 2 years. I dressed in a 2-piece suit, like the meme, dressed for my enemy's downfall. I wanted her to know that I did this to her, and I was there to watch her hopes and dreams burn before her eyes. They took everything from here, even down to the house I left her. The company was shut down completely as they couldn't afford to recount all those years of unpaid taxes, and she, as the manager of finance, and her boss, the COO, were both sentenced to 5 to 10 years in prison. As she was escorted out of the court, our eyes met, and I had my best evil smile on as I then flipped her off. She bowed her head, and I saw a drop of tear fall from her eyes. Look who had the last laugh. Me. I got a call later on, 4 years ago, from an unknown number. It was her. She said she had got out close to 4 months ago, and that she wanted to make amends. We met at a KFC on a Saturday evening and talked about everything. She talked about how, when she first started working with the company, she had never seen so many made women in one gathering, how she always thought before then that her biggest achievement was being Mrs. McLean, and how she wanted to be more than just a wife. She said she started seeing a common denominator amongst the women, which was that they were all never married nor did they have kids. She said she thought in order to make it she had to be like them, and that since she was already married the only other thing was to not have children. She saw how they openly condemned having kids and how they said their lives were much better because they didn't have any parasites latching onto them. She said she hated herself for being so naive and impressionable. She didn't have to say it, it was evident in her appearance, posture, and her body. I had noticed some scars on her hands, although she tried to hide them by wearing long sleeves. She said when she got out, she went over to a friend from the office, that what she was when she got there made her hate herself even more. She said the lady was now married with 2 kids aged 4 and 1, and she also had another on the way. She told me that when they had started talking, she had told her how she only remained working there because the pay was good and the benefits even better. The friend of hers told Caroline that she was already engaged to be married and had planned to resign as soon as she got married, until the company was shut down, that is. Caroline went on to talk about what she said was the most painful part of it all. When she asked about the lady who gave her the abortion advice, the lady told her that after the company got shut down by the government she left the country. She said that they had still kept in touch until the lady told her that she was pregnant, aged 41. Caroline told me that her friend from work got angry at the lady who had given the abortion advice, stating that she had given someone advice that helped ruin her marriage only for her to decide she was going to have children, the same children she strongly advised against. She showed me a recording of the words of the lady who gave her the advice. I played it and it went like so, not word for word because it's been a long time, but this was basically what the lady in the recording said. I was really envious of Carl. She was the youngest and still somehow was the one who had life figured out the most. It was a good thing she was such a naive lady. Most of us were miserable. Yes, we were rich, but what good is having all the money in this world if you had no one to share it with? I gave her that advice in hopes that her husband would find out. Not only was she married, but she was married to a literal knight in shining armor. I laughed, to be honest. These were the women she wanted to be like, sad, pathetic, and miserable women. These were the women she betrayed me. I looked at her, she was now like those women, although now she wasn't as rich as they were, she didn't even have anything. I laughed because of how sad it was. She asked about me, how my life was, if I had remarried. I told her that I wasn't. Her eyes lit up for the first time that day. She probably thought we still had a chance. I shut that hope down quickly. Told her I was finally happy, that I had finally moved on. I told her I wished her the best in all her endeavors. I really did. I thought she had suffered enough already. She tried to plead with me to remain in contact, to be friends, so we can see where that led. She told me she still loved me. She said she couldn't stop thinking about what I told her that day I left the house. She had started crying at this point. To be fair, she cried a lot during the conversation. I told her to forget about us rekindling what we had, that was never going to happen, that I don't see the woman I loved anymore, and that I had moved on in the time she had spent in jail. I told her I could help her back on her feet. Moving on was hard. Sometimes when I sleep, I dream about those 7 kids, a dream where they had names, a life, and a future. I have 1 child now, adopted. I'm serious about never getting married again. He's a real gem. God gave me the opportunity to choose a child this time and I chose right. His 10th birthday was just yesterday and he was the reason why I decided to tell the world my story. Thank you guys for reading this. I love the life I've built for myself since I left her. I'm happy now, my son makes me happy.